Before we move to our town manager's comments, I want to quickly acknowledge some absences. Our town attorney, Mac McCarley, is sick, so he's chosen to attend virtually for our benefit to keep everyone healthy. And we've already confirmed he can hear us and respond. Hey, Mac, thank you.
Hey, Mac.
And also several of our staff, including Manager Parsons, are attending a conference. So we have the pleasure of working with Assistant Town Manager Mike Cameron today. Thank you for being here, and I'll hand it off to you for manager comments.
All right. Very quickly, not a lot on the agenda that you're not already familiar with, so not a lot of comments on that. Obviously, you mentioned Mac being out and the other staff members being at a conference. We'll also mention the fire marshal was supposed to be with us today, but he is in the hospital as of last night. Hopefully nothing serious, but getting some tests run today, so I'll be filling in for some of his comments as well. So,
Thank you. Okay, moving on to action items. Consider PD-04-24, the written decision for WNC8 Distribution Center, which we discussed at the last town council meeting. Have you all had a chance to look over it? And is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the written decision for PD-04-24.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance number 3078. Sorry, I just had a remembering of something I need to do. It's okay. Ordinance number 3078, directing the housing inspector to remove or demolish the property herein described as unfit for human habitation, and directing that a notice be placed thereon that the same not be occupied until violations remedied. We have two of these.
We do?
Mike, I'll let you just address one after the other rather than
Okay.
me introducing both.
Okay, so just a really quick overview how we got to where we're at. Back in December and January, we had a change in our code to allow to move some of the provisions of the housing code under the fire department, under the fire marshal to manage. So we've done that. One of the first things we did back then is we did a pretty comprehensive review of the town and the houses that don't meet our housing code. We've put together a list of those. I will be happy to tell you that on that list, some of those properties have actually been bought by people, and the property has been, the house that may be on that property has been demolished and removed. So that list is actually coming down a little bit without us taking a lot of action. So from there, we have taken that list and we have tried to take between 5 and 10 of these at a time. These are two of the very first two, that the ones that we get the most complaints on in town from the general population, that we've tried to bring into compliance. So I'm going to start with, it actually has two addresses. It was an addition, but you're very familiar with this, is the old Cornell TV facility on US 1 Business, 1225 and 1245 Old US 1. We started this process with a complaint back on January 4th. And as you know, there is, as a reminder, we want to be very smart and very strategic when we do these kind of things, because obviously this is somebody's property that they actually own, even though it does not carry a lot of meaning to some people, it may to someone, and we want to make sure we evaluate that as we go. So obviously from there, we have done the required inspections between the fire marshal's office and the building inspector. We have sent letters. We've followed all those things. The owner of the property was, sorry, it's my pager. The owner of the property was a resident of Southern Pines and has since relocated to live with her son in Raleigh. So some of the first things that we sent out in the mail were never replied to. We did end up tracking down her son. In this particular case, they originally agreed to sign a waiver allowing us to move forward without hearings and those type things. At that point, we sent them the waiver. We gave them the appropriate amount of time. They never signed the waiver. They did not. So we've moved forward with the process. We've held the public hearings. We've gone through all of the necessary channels. Our attorney has reviewed the process. And so we're at the point where this is before the council for permission for us to go into contract with one of the three bidders to demolish the property and remove it from the site. Once that has been done, there will be a lien put against the property. And in your packet included all of that material, all of that information, plus the quotes for tearing that property down, 3 quotes.
So I saw 2 quotes. Can you give me the page numbers? Do you have them in front of you? Of all 3 of them?
It's right there.
Are they all 3 together?
Yeah.
53, 54, 55. Pages. And that was the second one. Sorry, the first one was
Oh, no, that works.
12, 13, and 16.
Thank you.
And Mike, can you just refresh my memory? And Mac, if you're listening, you indicated it. We've had these before, but these prices were much more expensive than I remember seeing for doing this. It just, we pay for it in the interest of public safety, and then it's a lien that'll sit there for the 10-year period if the property is sold. Mac, if you can hear, do we, especially these are 100,000 plus liens, do we renew them for an additional 10-year period, or do we just set it for one lien period?
I think what we would do is first send the property owner a bill and give them an opportunity to pay it. If they don't pay it, we would file the lien, but I would suggest leaving it open for 10 years. I would say give them some reasonable period of time to sell the property. If they don't, then let's foreclose on the lien.
Okay, thank you.
The condition of this building is absolutely a safety hazard. I mean, looking through the pictures, I think you can tell from the outside that people see it every day, but from the inside, you can see how bad it's been and that people have been in the building.
We have had some, what we would assume would be a couple of homeless occupants in and out of the building. There was a tent behind the building. Since that, at this point, to our knowledge, there's no one staying in the building at this point in time.
Mike, to your understanding, is there a reason why, since they were in touch with you before, and then all of a sudden they didn't even sign the waiver? Is any understanding, is there something happened in the family or something like that?
No, and I'll be honest, we have had some lengthy conversations via the telephone with the son of the property owner, and they're not living in the area. They're just not going to do anything with it. The mother, who actually is in her name, she is not capable or able at this point in time. She moved in with her son because of health concerns, from my understanding. So
Do we know the status of asbestos?
we do not, but I'm willing to talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah.
One of the estimates mentions asbestos if
That
it's
is
found.
true. So we're well aware of asbestos. Obviously, we have to have asbestos testing done before you demo that building. That asbestos, the issue is not the asbestos inspection itself, is if it comes back with asbestos in it, then that has to be removed. So what you have in front of you is obviously invoices that do not include asbestos removal. This is going to be an issue with any of the
Yeah.
structures that we have. I'm going to tell you the same thing every time I come before you. We did debate doing the asbestos inspection before we brought that to you, so we could give you a full picture. But obviously, we wanted to get this in front of you while those bids were still available for us to get at that cost.
What are the gymnastics involved in if there is asbestos, as far as do you go back for another bid? Or are we
So-
then committed to the lowest
We will,
bid?
we will get a bid for asbestos removal, and we'll hire that lowest bid. They would come in and do that removal, and then we would go back and do the demolition. But typically, those two things are not normally tied together.
Okay,
The demo companies a lot of times don't do asbestos removal.
okay.
So one of them mentioned an asbestos report.
Yes,
That was in McFadden Homes. Will the others also do the checking for asbestos?
they don't have a choice.
Okay, I was like, I hate to have to pay someone else just to go in and check.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's something the town is going to contract.
Yeah, we probably will contract that because we're required to keep that report for so many years. But the asbestos inspection, depending on the size, the number of samples, and I don't want to go into price, but that relative to the price that you have here is not on that level. Removal, that creates another issue altogether.
And so what we're comparing here, these three bids are basically the same scope.
Yep.
Is there any other questions or discussion on the first one, which is the, sorry, I just lost the page. I'll find it. The one on US one, or old US one. Okay, is there a motion to approve ordinance 3078.
So if we approve this, what determines which of these bid? Do y'all just have the
We're gonna
authority?
we're gonna take the low bid.
And y'all, okay, but y'all have the authority to do that. We don't have to then come back and
No.
pick which,
The-
okay.
This is presented to you as assuming there's no asbestos.
Yeah.
We're gonna assume this is a whole package to you. We're gonna say this is the only time this is gonna come before you.
Okay.
Unless you come up with something today, you want it another time, obviously.
But if we find asbestos, if the town contracts to seek out asbestos, then there'll be another round of bidding for removal of the same.
Correct.
Okay.
I move to approve ordinance 3078.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, motion carries. And moving on to ordinance 3079, the second property.
Exact same situation and different. This is also a commercial building, but it's located on the west side of Southern Pines, 312 Gain Street. You're familiar with this. Many of the people consider this, as we talked about Cornell's TV, this is considered Pew's or Podge's Pew's funeral home. Process was pretty much the same. We never spoke to someone that would take responsibility for the building. In order for us to do the inspection on this building, we actually had to get a warrant to do the inspection, which is not uncommon. So we got a warrant to do the inspection in the building, which was done. You also have all of the material from that inspection, pictures, all of those types of things. Some of the things the pictures may not show is, for example, the floor is sinking in the building. There's actually some space where you can tell the floor is dropping below the molding, and so the floor is starting to drop out. Obviously, and as you guys, everybody in this room realizes this, but the reason we do this is obviously not just looks, but from a safety standpoint, we're worried about the buildings in the neighborhood that can create a safety hazard for anyone living in that neighborhood.
So when you said that you never spoke to somebody who would claim ownership, we sent out the letters.
Yep.
Do we know the letters were received? Okay, and we just never heard back from anyone?
Nope.
And
At one point in time, we had an attorney that we thought was going to assume responsibility for this, but once that's where we were directed to through some of our research and investigation. But once we talked to the attorney was like, nope, nothing to do with the property, don't have anything to do with the property. So we pretty much hit a dead end, but the letters were received. We followed all of the legal steps to get to this point.
Okay. And then there's a legal notice that goes on the property.
Yes, it was posted on the, I want to say 23rd of February.
And there has been no response from anyone?
Nope.
Okay.
No conversation at all. We've set up everything we could to do that.
I think seeing buildings falling apart, decaying, and having to be torn down is hard for everybody. And I think it demonstrates a time gone by in Southern Pines that we all sort of reminisce of what Southern Pines used to be. And I think it's sad to all of us that they need to come down, but for safety reasons. The last thing I want is someone being in a delinquent property and getting hurt, or no one finding them in that property and they are not able to safely get out. Does the council have other questions for Chief Cameron? It's like ATM, Assistant Manager.
doesn't matter.
Chief, what am I calling you?
I answer all of them.
Just going to be Assistant Town Manager, Chief Cameron.
So I don't think any of this would make any difference. The fact that there's a typo in regard to Gain Street as far as the warrant goes, that's water over the dam. I assume it looks like the street is spelled, the address is spelled incorrectly on,
What, missing the E?
missing the E. Do we have any sort, I guess that's a question for our esteemed attorney who's disappeared.
He's there.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm still here.
okay, awesome.
Ms. Peterson, I'm not concerned about that. I don't think anybody is going to contest these.
Right,
Even if they did, the best they could do is say, damage my property, I want to be paid. You've seen the pictures.
right, right. Thank you.
This is all new for me, so I don't know if I guess the question should go to Mac. After the 10 years of the lien, it's open for someone to buy it, or it's open for someone to buy it even during the 10 years, or how does that?
I'm not a property lawyer, so I'm gonna give you the big picture of this. If somebody bought it during the period that the lien was active on that property, they would have to pay off the lien to be able to take title. So we would get paid. But I'm not advocating that we leave them sitting out there that long. I would say a year or two. And if the heirs to that property have not chosen to sell it by then, I don't think there's any reason for us to continue sitting on the lien. We ought to go talk to the county, see if they have any outstanding taxes on it, along with our potential for outstanding taxes, and let's get foreclosed on it and put that property back in the market so that somebody can build on it.
Amen. Yeah, that Podges Pew, I'm not from Southern Pines, but my husband was, well, he wasn't either, but he would come down here during the summertime. And that was a popular spot. Well, that was the funeral home, but the other areas that Pew owned were popular areas. And when I did come here for the first time, I looked at that spot and I said, wow, that would make a great church and a great school. Because it's just a lot of property, and it happens to be in West Southern Pines. So yeah, to know that that could possibly be on the market for someone to be able to purchase is encouraging.
Yeah, I think the demolition is the best path forward for it to be used for the community.
I have been here long enough to have known Podgy Pew and to have known that property, and I can tell you that that was a big heart that ran that business. He was very instrumental in helping build the Blanchie Carter Park. Anytime I showed up and asked Podgy Pew to show up with a bulldozer or any heavy equipment, he showed up. He was a magnificent angel in regard to that process, and he did a lot of good. And I think he would want his property to do some good again.
Are there other questions, or does anyone have a motion regarding ordinance 3079?
We gotta do another.
Oh, we're doing two different, just so we can discuss them in different motions. Would you like to make another motion?
You can do that one.
Move to approve ordinance number 3079.
Second.
And all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance number 3080, budget amendment to water sewer upgrade capital project fund.
I think you're familiar with this one. This was something that you've seen before, and I think it was left out of the packet last time. Obviously, I don't think there's any surprises there. If you have any questions, obviously Tess is here to answer those questions.
Does anyone have questions for Tess? Okay, is everyone okay with making a motion, or is anyone okay with making a motion to approve ordinance 3080?
I can move to approve ordinance 3080.
Second.
And I second that.
Thank you. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Tess, thank you for being here. Ordinance 3066, Town Council Rules of Procedure. I do have notes on this one.
Yeah.
If you'll give me just a second to find them.
Mayor and council.
Yes.
We've made changes in accordance with your comments at the last meeting when we discussed it. So the changes are shown in the red line version, and they're in rules 3, 33A, and 37B. The one in rule 3 rewrites that one, clarity and simplicity.
Okay.
The one in 33A is amended to match our actual practice, which is a, So the change to 33A says that we don't have to distribute to the members a proposed amendment to something that you're about to vote on, but it does retain the requirement that it be in writing, and that typically happens over at the staff table. We will write it up and hand it to that. And then the changes to 37B are related to the public comment periods. And in the fourth bullet, we have added the provision that says a maximum of 10 speakers unless the council agrees to hear additional speakers. And we've also changed something to match our actual practice, which is that people sign up as the clerk, preferably upon arriving at the meeting. But if they don't do that and they simply raise their hand later and the mayor calls on, they're still gonna want to get their name and address right, so they'll track them down and get them to sign. And then the last one, I've added a bullet that specifies for basically due process reasons, that if something is the subject of a legally required public hearing, it is not appropriate for comment at the public comment period. Everything for a legally required public hearing needs to be within the public hearing that's been called, not a public comment.
Thank you for adding that clarification. No, the one thing I did want to say is we had a lot of discussion on the guidelines for public comment last month. And I've been thinking about solutions to the variety of perspectives that our council had. I think we all strive to be abundantly available to our community, in person, by phone, by email, and otherwise outside of meetings. But I understand the comments that are prepared and brought to our public meetings are more than a one-on-one conversation. Our public comment period is a more formal process, puts our comments into the public forum and on the record. And I do agree they should be heard. But I also think we have a responsibility to conduct business of the town at our monthly business meetings. And out of respect for the individuals and staff who have prepared the items on our agenda, I think they have a right to be heard as well. Ideally, all parties have the ability to reasonably estimate when they will be heard. And I think Attorney McCarley's recommendation is the right start. It allows multiple viewpoints and topics within the first 30 minutes. And then if we have more than 10 people sign up, I think if we offer time at the end of our meeting for a second public comment period, unless they prefer to wait until the next meeting, which would require them coming back and signing up as one of the first 10 speakers, that would allow them to be heard the evening of the public meeting. It allows us to get to the business on our agenda and the preparation that staff has put into it in a timely manner, while also allowing everyone a chance to speak. Does that sound reasonable?
I think I like that. I think that's a reasonable compromise of the concerns that some had last meeting about limiting this number of speakers. And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't public comment at the end of the agenda previously?
One point it was, yeah, a while back. So, yeah, I mean, I'm good with that just because it doesn't cut it off. If somebody shows up and they want to speak, they can't be denied because of the 10 number, which we never intended, but if there's a council who's trying to attend it, they can't if they are allowed to wait and speak at the end. So I'm okay with that.
And it's rare we have more than 10, but if we do.
Yeah, the only thing I think sometimes we wonder about is the fact that we've got several comments all dealing with the same topic. So we could have 10 people and they're all talking about the same thing, and then they kind of knock out the opportunity for other people who may have a comment about something other than, and that,
It filibusters the meeting.
Yeah,
It then takes
yeah.
over.
Yeah,
And then-
yeah. I mean, that's not fair, actually, when we consider the entire community, so I don't know,
everyone.
but.
There was verbiage in here about limiting the number of people to speak about the same topic, though.
Yeah, so yes, it was 6. And I think that would be, so they would sign up with Beth, our clerk, and do we know what they're speaking on when they sign up, Mac, or do we address that as they're speaking? If 6 people speak on, I don't know, a pothole on Broad Street, the 7th person, do we say, you need to wait?
I've seen that in other jurisdictions.
Okay.
As a practical matter, I think we will generally know who's coming into the meeting and what they want to talk about, because they probably will have already talked to several of you ahead of time. So, for example, the last couple that I can think of are the homeless issue. We all knew what that group was going to say roughly, and the Knollwood Road group, we know what they're going to talk about. So you generally have an idea of who's coming to say what. And when you recognize that, I think you would say 6 people on that topic. And if nobody else wants to speak on anything, then let them have the other 4 slots. But if there are other people there to talk about something different, you would give them those last 4 slots.
And it could be, Mac, one person, but 18 minutes, because we did allow the reservation of time, correct?
Yes, sir, that's still in there.
Okay.
These rules, by the way, these proposals are pretty common across the state, especially the 30-minute limit or 3 minutes and 10 speakers. And it is to preserve the ability to get the town's business done while at the same time giving people an opportunity to come speak to you in public and frankly broadcast to other people who aren't there. But there's no reason to let that go all night.
I just want to make sure that the business that that we are elected to do doesn't get sidetracked indefinitely by public comments. So if we can make time for both.
I don't think there's any more important business than listening to constituents. So I obviously have had a problem with this before and will continue to have a problem with it.
I would say that every item on our agenda is probably for our constituents because they spoke in the past or because something has come to our attention that's for their safety or their well-being. So I think taking action on those is also for our constituents. Otherwise, they can come and speak all night and we would never accomplish anything. All right.
Did you have language?
Imagine this rule pretty much grew up after large groups came to filibuster an issue in several different cities.
Sure.
It's just a way to say, we want to hear from you, but we need to get the business of the town done too.
Well, it is the only time to conduct business for the town is in this meeting, and constituent services can happen there, email, telephone, face-to-face. There's multiple ways for that to happen. There's only one process to conduct the town's business, and that's in that business meeting.
And I will be glad to stay at a meeting until 4 a.m. if constituents are there and would like to speak. I'm happy to hear them.
Did you have just a suggested language, or would your motion include this change to add at the end of the meeting, if there's anybody beyond that 10 speakers, basically creating a second public hearing of the night of the meeting? And that would, what you
Yeah, I
were.
think, so there'd have to be a change, an amendment to.
Public comment, and so the language in here about preferably, did you anybody have any strong feeling about preferably at the beginning of a meeting or required to sign up? Or is everybody fine with preferably, or?
I'm okay with that, because if
Okay.
somebody's 5 minutes late, I don't want them to not be able to speak, just because they didn't get on the list.
Right. And
If you agree with the suggestion to allow additional speakers at the end of the meeting, I'll give you a sentence that would accomplish that purpose that you could add to the 4th bullet in Rule 37B, if you're interested.
yes.
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 All right, here's the sentence. If more than 10 persons request to speak, the council may approve adding an additional public comment period at the end of the agenda.
Perfect.
Okay. And then when we do that, when we get to public comments, we will have already approved the agenda. And so at the end of public comment, we would just make the decision to amend the agenda. Is that right?
You would amend the agenda then.
Okay.
That way people would know that there was a point of stay.
Okay, perfect. And that gives us a chance to ask anyone who's on the sign-up sheet if they would prefer to stay until the end of the meeting or come back next month. Is it allowable to ask in a public meeting? Can I address the public and ask? Sorry, Mac, that was for you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
You can ask both who wants to speak and what's your topic,
okay.
as long as we're not going to limit them based on what they say, unless it doesn't meet the rules for what we believe is in order. For example, if they tell you, I want to talk about a zoning map that you've already held a public hearing on, that's when you would say, that's out of order. All of those comments have to be at the public hearing. But basically, if you've got 8 people and they all raise their hand, they ask, what are you here for? And they answer with 5 of them are here on the same topic, I guess is that you're going to take those 5 together and then add the others when they're done.
Okay.
It's useful. And there's nothing that says we can't ask them, what's your topic?
Yeah, it might be nice to have that on a sign-up sheet, Beth.
Mhm.
If we're using the sign-up sheet method, just to have a
Good
topic
idea.
on there.
Exactly.
I'm fine with everything, with the amendments, adding public comments at the end.
Are you fine with the other amendments that Attorney McCarley? Okay.
It's been my observation that the people who come to our meetings regularly know to come sign up, and the people who are coming for the first time ever to talk about something don't know the system. And those are the ones who generally end up raising their hand when the mayor asks, is there anyone else here to speak? And then we find out that they came to speak.
Right.
Outside at the beginning of the meeting.
That's why I put preferably in that rule, so that we're not doing them out of the opportunity to speak, simply because they didn't know the system.
I will add it to my notes to make sure that I make an announcement before public comment starts, that if anyone else wants to speak, to sign their name up. And I will, given time, always say if there's other speakers who have not signed up, make sure they have an opportunity to speak. So I made a note on here that I just wanted to include that I have never sat on a board or attended a public meeting that used Robert's rules correctly, except for maybe the congressional hearing on energy and commerce last summer. But particularly the requirement that we had, or that Robert's rules has, to make a motion prior to discussion feels very rash for a group our size. We all share the town's best interest, and in order for us to accomplish those goals, we need rules of procedure that allow our meetings to be effective. And I really appreciate your work, Attorney McCarley, to use the North Carolina School of Governance rules along with our current procedures to find a clear set of guidelines that can help us function, as well as ensure the public knows what to expect and how to participate in our meetings. Thank you for doing that. Is there any other discussion, or is there, oh, sorry, there's a delay, so I apologize, I'm talking over you.
Further discussion, I think, Mayor.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 3066, our rules of procedure as presented in the packet, and including the additional amendment for 37B as suggested by Attorney McCarley in discussion today.
I second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mac. Ordinance number 3081, wait, I just did that.
Nope.
Nope,
you're good.
no, I didn't. Amend the Town Code of Ordinances, Chapter 96, Solid Waste, Recycling, and Yard Waste. This is another one that has been a long time in the working. And I'm so glad that you're here, Chief Cameron, to talk about it.
As am I. Very quick recap. This rewrite has been a long time coming, and the rewrite is currently being completed, actually ahead of a few other ordinances that are going to be rewritten because it is timely for some of the things that we have going on. As you know, that we're under contract with a new solid waste and recycling vendor. We have been in multiple meetings with them. We've worked through some of the items in this to make sure we're meeting not just what our citizens need, but also what our vendors are going to supply to us. This document has not been rewritten in many, many years. It covers not just the solid waste or trash, if you will, but it also covers recycling, and it covers yard waste, which we're obviously managing ourselves at this point. So you should have a red line copy. You can see those changes. You can see all of the things in there. One of the things that you have probably started to see a little bit of is the town, led by Gerald, and our communications side of the house has started pushing out some information on recycling. Tess's staff at Water Billing has started receiving recycling requests, signing up. I think we're over, very good job. I think we're over 200 at this point, or around 200 who have signed up within about the last week. So we're pretty excited about that, moving in the right direction. So we want to make sure we get this right up front, and this is the opportunity to do that. This has been vetted by multiple groups inside of town staff, from our public works staff to our administration, through some of the water billing staff, obviously. So we've put some time and effort into get this in front of you. Hopefully you've had a time to look over and read it. Please ask questions, comments, those type things, and I will do the best to answer those.
So comment first, and I think it's Gerald who gets the kudos. Good write-up in the water bill insert. That was clear.
Yep.
So thank you for that. That was clear and well done. I could understand it, so that's, That's the bar.
That was, well, the intent was for general population to be able to understand that.
I have a question on, so this is going forward, a going forward document.
Yes, sir.
Right, so a townhome that existed prior to the adoption of this ordinance can still receive their service.
That's correct.
What's your actual question?
My question was, so on,
What do you think? Give me a
well,
synopsis of what you're talking about.
on page 130 of 135, townhomes was added to a list of the uses that will be required to have a dumpster.
It is based on the number, but if you have it's based on 10 townhomes or more. We have some provisions. This was cross-referenced. As a reminder, this is cross-referenced with our planning and zoning information. Remember, there's information in there about dumpsters, who gets a dumpster, who didn't get a dumpster. And so when we did this, we'd had a couple things that were probably in conflict with each other, to be honest with you. So we've done our very best to take that conflict out of that. So we don't have one ordinance or one code that says one thing, and then you got a slight variation in a different ordinance. So we've tried to
So what I was questioning about was whether these folks that already have service from the town picking up the bins aren't going to lose that service as a result of this change in this ordinance.
You want to make sure they're grandfathered in.
Yes. I also view townhomes as a bit differently than a condominium or apartment complex.
So in certain situations in this ordinance the word townhome was not always in the right place in our previous ordinance.
Yeah.
And so we went back in a few places and added that, because that is a much more legitimate option in Southern Pines now than it ever had been in the past.
Do we know of any properties who are losing curbside service because of this change?
Curbside service, no,
Okay,
we do not. I will elaborate on that for 1 second.
okay.
We have some dumpsters. The town pays for 63 dumpsters, by the way. We have some facilities that no longer, some commercial businesses that no longer meet the mandate of those dumpsters. There are going to be a few places that are losing that dumpster service. They have already been contacted and told that. And to my knowledge, they don't like it. What that basically means is we're not supplementing that dumpster anymore.
What's the criteria on that?
For a dumpster,
Yeah, that they would no longer qualify.
it's the number. First of all, the main thing is how much commercial solid waste are they producing? Is it more or less than a trash can? Is it more than a dumpster can manage? So that's the first thing. Some of it has to do with the numbers of people that are in the building. Is it more than some of those things we can manage? In opinion, this is my opinion. So we actually are okay on dumpster wise as far as revenue. We don't lose money on dumpsters, to be honest with you. However, we're deeply in the dumpster business, and my personal opinion is that causes us a struggle occasionally. I'm not sure that we want to get any further into the dumpster business that we're in. That's not our area of expertise. We don't have trucks that empty dumpsters. And so, not to belabor that point, that's really not what this is, but since it came up.
So I have a question that brings me to the amount. It has 180, which is crossed out to 190. The garbage bins that we have as residents are 90-gallon rolling bins.
95,
95. Oh, okay, so that's the math. Okay, thank you.
you got it.
Only, again, going back to the townhomes thing, is I feel like that we have a bit of a desire, at least in the downtown areas, to see that because it does provide a workforce housing type of house. And there's really no difference between a townhome and a single-family home other than a common wall.
Yeah, I was gonna say, except for you can't roll your bin around front very easily.
So, some of the challenges with townhomes is the number of townhomes there are and how many rolling bins you have. So if you're a facility, if you're a townhome and you have 30 townhomes, now you've got 30 rolling bins sitting outside. And now at some point in time, something's going to kick in and say,
Storage.
well, how do you hide those? Where do you store them? Are you putting them in your garage? We find that a lot of places aren't putting them in their garage.
Well, they don't have garages.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Some don't.
So there are some challenges. I don't know if there's anything specific in here that's going to take something away from a townhouse. What we do now is when we have a new development come in, as you know, the process, that technical review committee that comes through, we evaluate how much solid waste or recycling they're going to produce, and we put that in up front for them. So really, I think what you're talking about is probably existing townhomes.
It is definitely existing, and I think we're
Going
fine
forward, we're
on
gonna,
that.
that will be addressed.
Right. I know some townhomes, communities do have a dumpster,
Right.
but a lot of townhome communities also have alleyways.
That's right.
So that's where
Yeah.
their trash pickup would be
So do
in
we,
front.
in answer to your concern, do we go back to the definition of multifamily unit? I think I think the language is a little bit confusing when it says complexes receiving hand collection service as of June 30th, 1998 shall not be required to utilize a dumpster.
There are 10 of those facilities.
Yeah.
We chose not to take that out because that is a previous council ruling.
Right, and
By the way, from 1998.
right,
I don't know who was around here when we did that, but that is a previous council's ruling.
right.
But we debated about taking that language out. Obviously, that's at your purview if you want to.
No, I
there's
think it's-
10 of them that
I think it's,
impacts.
yeah, I'm advocating keeping it, but I'm also wondering if there's a clearer way, if there's a way to offer more clarity in regard to that is a service that extends for all time, which I think 2008 council tried to do. And I'm not sure that statement does it. I mean, it may be a question for our attorney.
All time makes me a little nervous. By the way, the attorney has, as I think I said, reviewed these, but
Right,
all time obviously makes me nervous because the bottom line is, what if something changes? What if they use the facility differently?
right,
We can
Right.
what if that to death, and we won't come up with the answers in this room, by the way.
right.
But
No, I understand the concern.
this is something we put a considerable amount of thought into. I'm not stuck on it. If you say you want to change it, we'll change it. But
No, I don't see a
we
clean way
debate-
to change it though
There's,
either.
there's
Right.
not, we debated and debated on that.
I understand.
I've got a question on the yard waste collection. So section 96.055, C. So the town is not responsible for collecting more than 3 cubic yards of waste from any one location during one collection cycle. And then the blue font says you can combine it, but no more than 3 cubic yards of yard waste will be collected per resident during any one cycle, which would mean that you could combine houses. And if you said it was for 3 residents, it'd be 9 cubic meters, which is contrary to what's written in black. I think it's supposed to say will be collected per location. That last resident word should say location.
Let me see.
4 of us use one spot.
Correct.
Well, otherwise, yeah,
That
'cause-
happens all the time now.
And I think it makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
We tried to give them options. I could take you to some neighborhoods right now. There's 10 houses on this one road that put all of their yard waste in one thing. And the intent is, and we'll make sure that intent is right, is that you 10 houses can put that out there, but we're only picking up 3 cubic yards per house. All right, per that.
So
one
if it gets
location.
to more than 3 cubic yards, set it in front of a different
No.
house. Well, not a different house, but set it in front of your own house. Well, if it's 4 neighbors and they all
Would
put
we-
it in
would
my
we
front
pick it up?
yard.
We would pick it up, but most people who are doing this don't want it picked up in front of their house. So what we're doing is, if all of us live in the same neighborhood and we all agree on this one spot to put our yard waste, we put all that yard waste there. We're gonna come by and pick up 3 cubic yards per person,
Per person, okay.
per house.
Like
So,
30 cubic yards.
exactly. So if we are not able to pick it up all, the next time we come back, we're gonna keep working on it.
Okay.
It's not a one-time shot.
Okay.
So that happens
Okay.
more than you would guess.
So if it's more than 3 cubic yards in that one location, you will still pick it up when you know it's multiple households that are putting it there.
Yep.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Have there been fewer issues regarding people dumping waste in front of houses that are locations that are unoccupied, in particularly Westland Pines?
My understanding is I have not had a report of that probably since the last time you and I have spoken about it. Could I guarantee you that's not happening? I cannot guarantee you
Right.
that, but we've had no more reports of it.
Okay.
Do I think it's gonna happen again? Yes.
I
Do I think we can?
would join you, and I would offer some consensus in that regard, but I do think it's nice to be able to have the violation, and I think it's important for townspeople to know if they see
To report it.
someone dropping yard waste in front of a home that is just being left there by a yard service person randomly, they are welcome to get the license number and contact the town, and there's now a penalty in place. So,
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, since it's been a little bit since this change, how did the backdoor medical exception, how's that been playing out? Has it been working as we
It's actually been
intended?
working out pretty good. I don't have any negative to say about it. We've had, once we got through that process and explained that, I apologize for not knowing that number. I did at one point in time, but it changes somewhat frequently. But we have, right now, today, we have no issues. That whole process is going to transfer over to Meridian. When they come in, they're familiar with it. We've got a system now that we kind of have started marking those on a tablet, so the drivers can learn that and see that. So I don't know if we had some complaints in the beginning, but those complaints were more misunderstandings. We worked through those, and to my knowledge, we don't have any issues at this point.
great.
Just for some background, well, I guess let me clarify first. Glass is now included in recycling, right? It will be again.
Will be.
Once-
It will be.
January 1st?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Bill,
good.
info in your water bill, that's
I-
great, that's exciting.
And I always clarify, especially with council, because you guys are out talking to people, you see people, you get questions. Today's recycling list does not mean it's the same recycling list 6 months from
Yeah.
now. Just the nature of that,
Of
as
that
we've had
recycling.
discussions before, it may change. So what we say today does not mean 6 months from now we're doing the same thing.
So I have just a practical question in regard to when we change companies, what happens to the large, still in good shape cans from our previous company?
So you can have that if you would like to have that. If you don't want it, we will be happy to pick it up and recycle it for you.
Okay,
Meridian, he said they will pick them up. We do not have some great purpose for
okay,
6,000 bins.
that's,
I'm being a little facetious, but we're closer to 6 than we are to 4.
right. So that's a lot of plastic that I'd love to have not end up in the dump. Is there a practical solution that,
We have had that discussion with Meridian. They said if somebody takes that and sets it out on recycling day and make sure that we know that it's set up for recycling, they will be happy to recycle those for us.
and they truly will recycle them?
That is,
Okay.
they have given me their word.
Okay, okay. And can you or Tess remind me the cutoff, there's a X number recycling, and then you start a new pile of recycling. What's our cutoff? Was it a 200 or 400 number where we started with another
Oh.
pod of recyclers?
Yeah, the
Yes.
tiers.
600?
It's an odd number. It's like 672, 659, something like, but yes, that's the
Okay.
first tier.
Okay. And we pay the same rate from 0 to 672 or 5 or whatever it
Yeah,
is?
right.
Okay.
And then, and we don't pay, and then if we go into the next tier, whether it's 1 or whether it's 100, we pay the second tier.
The higher rate.
Okay. So right now, we're at 200, and just general information for the public, it would help if you had another 470 something.
Absolutely,
So we were getting a big bang for our buck. Okay.
correct.
And just to, I know it's out there and it's also in the water bill, but just to put it out in the meeting, it's in your water bill. There's a link there to sign up. Is there anything else we need to tell people?
It is, will be obviously in the newspaper again, probably a couple times. Gerald has plans for social media. We're going to be pushing this. Our goal is to really start pushing it hard in October. Meridian will be in town in October, and they will be doing house counts. So you'll probably see a few more things about that. So we have a couple plans to try to really push it between now and I'll say mid-December is kind of our goal.
It was 1 to 650,
Thank you.
650, okay.
and the next break is 651 to 1300.
Oh, that's a big, okay.
And I was just gonna make a comment. I was gonna say it during the roundtable, but it's kind of relevant here. I apologize. I didn't read verbatim what you put in the water bill. I saw some of the online postings. But I did see some, I don't want to say miscommunications or misunderstandings about, if I'm not gonna pay the $10, why is my bill not status quo? And I just want to remind everybody, this whole thing is from about 2 years worth of negotiations because our contract ran out. So nothing, the comparison of what you were paying to what you are paying, it's just not applicable because we're under a whole new set of rules. And we fought really hard, the mayor was central to it, to negotiate the best new contract we could, but we found that trash, especially the landscaping of recycling, it was just a different ballgame. And so we fought really, really hard to save as much money as we could. But that's why if you're like, I'm not paying the $10, why am I not paying $10 less? It's not even comparable. But we fought really hard to do the best for all the Southern Pines on that.
Keep quality of services up
Yeah.
and keep the cost down.
Yeah, and just so you know, staff is aware of some of those comments and questions. And so we've actually had a meeting to where we want to try to make sure we're putting out the correct information. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you for saying that, Bill. It has been a lot of discussion over 2+ years, and I realize that a lot of that's gotten lost in history. But the increased prices and the reduction of services that we first were confronted with, it took a lot of effort to find somebody who could do a quality level of service that we were happy with at a reasonable price. And I really appreciate first of all, Mike for doing a lot of the work on this, but also for our solid waste department. When I have gone by their offices and talked to them, they are doing such a good job of their work, and they're out there seeing our public and remembering faces and names. And I think that our residents appreciate the work they're doing.
we get a lot of compliments on those guys, which is obviously very positive.
They're amazing. They're amazing. They're thorough. They clean up after with a rake. They're incredible. They're good spirits. They're the best.
All right, if there is no other discussion, is there a motion to approve ordinance 3081?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 3081.
For a second? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to council updates and discussion, and then council roundtable. Is there a difference between these two? Okay,
I don't think so.
just making sure I know what I'm getting into.
It's 2 opportunities to talk.
So if you forget anything in the updates and discussion, we
Only
will
if
bring
you
it back
signed up
at the
on the sign-up
roundtable.
sheet. And then
The meeting.
Yep, okay, so I know that Bill has to be out of here in an hour, so I think that we have time to get through everything. I usually start this end, so let's,
That's good. That's fine.
Deborah, are you ready? Do you want me to start down this side? You have any updates or discussion?
No, I
If you
I sent
remember, okay.
Yeah, just the PowerPoint that I sent to the council, and sent also to the town manager. We are the privileged ones to be the local leadership here in this fantastic town. And I think we do a very good job fiscally. And knowing the people in this community, I think is important just as local government leaders. And so just for the benefit of this meeting, the PowerPoint that I sent out to the council and to town manager, and I'm sorry, assistant town manager, I did not send to you, was just on the disparity between minority and other privileged people in our community in terms of financial wealth. So many moons ago, the thought was made and suggested of possibly lowering the late fees for residents in the town when it comes to paying their water bill, possibly revisiting the disconnection fee, if that needs to be lowered or whatever. And so the whole idea of the PowerPoint was just to give us some statistics, to give us some data, not opinion, not rhetoric, not any of that, just factual data on the wealth gap in our country when it comes to African Americans predominantly and white Americans. And so, we have a lot on our plates. I don't expect everybody to have looked at the PowerPoint at this point, but just something to consider if we do consider in the future addressing any of those particular things to possibly make life just that much greater in this fantastic town called Southern Pines. So
I'm gonna join him on Thursday for some of the water shut-off ride around and continue that conversation. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to follow up with you on maybe continuing that conversation or discussion on how we can continue to improve that process in a way that encourages people to pay their bills, but also is respectful to people who are struggling and not creating undue burden on them.
yeah, that'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Necessity.
And thanks for the PowerPoint. I appreciated it and did look at it.
Was the lady that put the PowerPoint together, is she willing to come speak?
She is. She was one of the co-teachers that I had for a class at Duke. I'm no longer in that class. I've moved on to another class this term. But I do have her email, and I can definitely touch base with her. She was the regional director of economic. Oh God, wait a minute, let me get it right. She was over North Carolina and South Carolina statewide as regional director over economics in some form. And forgive me, I'm terrible on titles, but yeah, she was big. She wasn't, so.
It'd be nice if we made an opportunity for,
Definitely.
even if it was Zoom.
Definitely, she can certainly flush out a lot more of what was seen in the PowerPoint than I could. So yeah, definitely.
Just so you know, Reagan shared that with Jessica and I also, so I have seen it. Yeah. I wasn't going to interrupt you, but I have seen it, so.
Good. Thank you, Deborah. Bill?
I didn't come with a whole bunch, just some things that popped to mind. I will give a shout out to our town manager, Reagan Parsons. He is at a conference and he has been recognized. He has 30 years of municipal government involvement now, 20 of which is with us. So we've had 20 years of the privilege of having Reagan as our town manager, which is a great accomplishment. So you're not here watching or probably not listening, but good job, Reagan. Thank you. Also, just a couple things that we've gotten emails about lately that I've been asked. The Sheets is scheduled to open September the 30th, so that'll be Monday. And Target has their official grand opening December the 13th is their official, I think, or excuse me, yeah, October 13th. I think there's a soft opening earlier than that, but the 13th is their official day. So in case anybody wants to know, that's all anybody wants to ask about anymore.
I'll say it's in the pilot and it's in the sway for sure. So I think I've,
Oh, good.
yeah, I think I've seen them. I'm gonna go pass over myself and just go to you. I'll wrap up at the end, whatever other people.
I have nothing to suggest this evening.
Okay.
I have a question. Broad Street from Wisconsin to New York, or Massachusetts, rather, the utility services,
Yes, sir.
what is happening?
They-
It looks on. It's
Can
just-
you hear me? Yeah.
No, okay.
They are rebuilding some sewer lines, rehabbing some sewer lines in that area, if you will, upgrading some connections. And they are on a pretty tight time frame. We've actually had to pull them off a couple other jobs. Because if you know, not to get too far in the details with this unless you just want to know, paving has to be happen at a certain time. We got a paving contract that's getting ready to start, and that's got to happen before we get much colder. So we're trying to get those things done so those can be repaired fairly quickly and paved over correctly. So a lot of stuff going on with that you will see on Broad Street. They are doing that some other places. It just so happens Broad is extremely visible. So
I was glad to see that it seemed to be our own utility department doing that
it-
work.
it
which
is.
And instead of a
It is.
contractor, I was
It
glad to
is.
see that.
It is. That's correct.
And do we have a decision on paving, but marking that in front of gullies? Or have we all agreed that we're doing parallel spots on either side, or what's happening with that?
That has not been decided. We have had some discussion. I think before that gets decided, you're probably going to hear that either email or come back on the agenda. But there is some discussions, and I know that there's been some discussions with gullies as well.
Yeah, I
So,
think we went to talk to Gullies about the loading zone
Yeah.
areas and
So
make sure
that-
they had space.
yeah, I think they have some special requests, and I have not been in that discussion,
Yeah, and
so I
I'd
apologize.
be interested in honoring their special requests, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So the only other thing that I have to add to that, I just wanted to ask that question because I live there and I got to ask a question by a neighbor and my answer was, I don't know. So let me find out. So on East Illinois, or on actually West Illinois, and Southwest Broad, where we made that one way, I do think that sometime in the near future, we should look at putting some type of barrier or some kind of mitigation structure so that people coming down Broad Street don't continue straight. I've seen it.
So have we, and I'll tell you, and part of that was my decision several months ago. We left a barricade out there for months after
Yeah,
that.
not that
months.
barricade though. I don't want that one.
Yeah. And finally, we said, hey, we got to get used to this at some point in time. I will have some discussions with our street department to see if we have any better ideas. I will tell you, or to be able to do something at that intersection.
I feel like that the painted section with the striping at the end, if that was curbed with a planter,
Bring it out.
Yeah,
It
and
makes
bring
it
it out.
look more like you can't, yeah.
yeah.
The,
Or with a planter or something that makes it will tie it into downtown as well.
And then it moves that yield sign too, to the middle of the road. So when you're traveling up Southwest Broad, that yield sign is not so far off of the road, because that also happens. They blow through that. So fortunately, the speed that people travel at are just generally slow. So but there's been some near misses
yeah,
there.
we're familiar. So I'll follow back up on that as well.
Yeah, okay,
I'll do that
thanks.
in the morning.
Okay. All right. I have a few things I get asked on a regular occasion if being mayor is a full-time job, and sometimes it's not. And then there's days like today. It has been busy. Okay, so since we last saw each other, there was a 9/11 ceremony. Most of you were there. It was beautiful. We also received a letter of appreciation from the Sunrise Board for allowing them to help us host the annual event. Congratulations and thank you to Mike and our fire department for your all's effort in organizing it. We're reminded what it means to be American, to help others, and to choose kindness. And in Southern Pines, we are really blessed to have a great fire department, and this event gives us a chance to say thank you for the work you all do every day to keep us safe. So thank you. Before I forget, I have received several compliments about our planning and inspections department. I can't even remember who they came from, because at one point it was 3 within like 24 hours. So it's been a lot, and I have passed that along to BJ for him to share with his department, but wanted to say it publicly as well. On September 14th, the Alfred Moore chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution celebrated their 100th anniversary. And I know they have big plans with Weymouth for the country's 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence coming up. I think they're going to do next summer. 3 employees of the North Carolina DOT Integrated Mobility Division came down to Southern Pines on September 17th. Mike, Reagan, BJ, Brandon, and I met with them to talk about transportation needs in Southern Pines, the potential for public transit studies, and then Mike took us on a tour of town to show them some of the busiest roads and traffic patterns in areas that we felt needed to be addressed or where people needed to be moving around or access to public transit. We had a Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting the next day on September 18th and confirmed that the group did apply for the Safer Streets federal grant of $150,000 along with a $30,000 match from NCDOT. It's also for a study, but we have a really good chance of it being funded, and I think we all agree that safer streets are a priority for our citizens in all of Moore County. Pines Preservation Guild hosted a historic window rehab project this past weekend. I know that they are a resource to the town in the historic areas of more than just Southern Pines, but Moore County. And I attended it, and I know how to rehab windows now. It's a skill I may never use, but I appreciate that they are active in our community. Yesterday, the skate park had a groundbreaking. It has been 3 years since we dedicated the space for the construction and the original $50,000 to help them get started. They've been working towards that day for many years prior to that. A quick thank you to the Convention Visitors Bureau for their generous contribution. They are still fundraising. The group's selling bricks at what I would say is a reasonable price, and if anybody finds that the skate park is something that they care about or someone they know or a business cares about, up to another $60,000 is a match from the CVB. So every dollar raised is getting matched. Thank you to the Southern Pines Police Department for your continued presence on May Street during the heavy traffic times. Every time I walk across May Street, I'm reminded that cars are still learning to yield to pedestrians in our community. And the police presence at least allows them to slow down enough to see the pedestrians. And I think everybody over there appreciates it. And the last thing is the dog bandanas. I think that our Parks and Rec Department, along with our PR department, has got some dog reflective collars. We have a few, and if they see you out in the public, they're giving away just for responsible dog ownership. And if you take a picture with one around your dog and post on Instagram, our social media will share it. And I think that that's local chef and photographer, Chef Warren Lewis, has a gallery of his photography opening up this weekend and going through most of October, I think. If you guys want to stop in, he's got some beautiful photography.
Where's that?
At Eye Candy Gallery on Broad Street. I think it opens Saturday. And I think that's all the notes I had.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. The manager is watching the meeting.
Oh, good. Hi, Reagan.
So he mentioned that he has had discussion on the bulb out that we talk about on Wall Street, working through some sidewalk issues, still kind of in the planning phase, it sounds like. So he did send me that message to say that there have been some discussions about that. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to mention about a comment you made about May Street, just for your information, if you haven't heard this, you will hear this, but we have some concerned citizens that live in that May Street, Ridge Street area about traffic. So the town, several of the town staff are out in and around Episcopal Day School on a regular basis now, not just the police cars, but for example, myself and the deputy police chief were there on Friday twice to evaluate traffic. We're evaluating traffic again this week. This is really premature, but there's always that possibility we come back with some recommendations from a safety standpoint that we want to make some traffic directional changes we have discussed. We are in contact with a citizens group in that area. Have been primarily the contact for that, but 2 or 3 times a week. But we're working through those comments and questions. It would not be surprising to me if one of you heard that. Feel free, if you want to address that yourself, do that. If you feel free to, if you want to send them to me, that's as well also. All right. That was it.
Okay. Yeah,
Make a motion to
I'm
adjourn?
ready. Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you.
Where are you going?
The baby's there, right?
Where are you going? Oh, yeah?